Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Woo-hoo.
Hello, welcome to Conversations with SOTU. I'm Adrienne Metcalf.
And I'm Josh Schwartzbach.
If you've been following us at all, you know that Josh is a professional medium and channels a consciousness we call SOTU. We've been having many years of conversations with SOTU, and now you're in on part of that. Josh, are you ready to channel?
Mm-hmm. Here we go. All right. Well, in these shows we are never far away if after the dynamics of one show and into another. We do two at a time here. We have a clarification.
All right, from last week's?
From the last show, yes.
Yes.
And that is the dynamic of animals, and animals seeing human beings as God, that is true in all cases except for cats.
We did have a question that prompted
And so,
that.
John, in answer to your question, yes, the cat sees themselves as God. And you are their food source. All right.
Well, they're partly right.
Well, they are. They absolutely are.
They know of their...
They know from whence to beg. All right.
All right, so we've been talking about...
Of course, then we get into the whole dynamic of are there evolved beings that are canine? Are there evolved beings that are feline? Are there evolved beings other than primates? Ooh.
Well, the one has to say what's evolved. I mean, we tend
Consciousness, being able to communicate, being able to reason. Consciousness.
Well, that's a definition of consciousness to be
That's right.
considered.
Imagine what it would be like to be a human being and be canine or feline as a basic dynamic, or even amphibian, or even reptilian.
So we make all sort of assumptions that have
You
an
make all
inherent...
sorts of assumptions about consciousness that are very limited.
They are even laced with a bit of better than or less than. We assume
Well,
we're...
they can be, but your tendency is to give your power over. If you find you just love to find a godlike creature that you can give the total responsibility to.
Well...
You know, but that's not the story here.
But we've also, there's been belief systems about man being in domination or dominion over the plants and the animals in nature. And
Well, that's your latest incarnation of dogma.
that's very funny. What about my
Dogma?
Yes.
Feline fa?
dogma? But we won't even go into my pet chicken. But
Well, you know. And then there's this whole dynamic that's going on in your world right now around what they call the blue avian cult. Well, so just know it's fairly bogus.
all right, I'm not that familiar with them, so we probably won't go down that rabbit
That's right.
hole.
We will not disparage David Wilcox in this in this video. At least not overtly.
So there's all sorts of possibilities for consciousness that we have been
That you had not even considered.
Not even considered.
Right, and just as there are many different other aspects of the dynamic of consciousness, so the ability of earthly human beings to expand their consciousness to a point of gaining so much more, and so much more wisdom, so much more understanding, so much more ability, so much more empowerment, so much more compassion, so much more empathy, so much more caring. If you start to explore in this area, think of how long you've explored the negative in your world.
It seems
Think
like
of
a long time.
how many thousands of generations you have only reacted to the dynamics of negativity.
Well, it's hard to even imagine a creative, safe, empowered humanity.
Peace begins with enough for all. Now, what does that mean? Well, you have to consider the dynamics. What does the physically, what does humanity need to live? Food, water, shelter, and if you add the dynamics of healthcare and education, you begin to take your first steps toward the dynamic of the advanced civilization that we speak of so avidly, so hopefully. But again, it begins by you imagining what that could mean. Begin with it for yourself. What would it mean if you had an equal start with everyone else? What would it mean if you didn't have to compete? We're not talking about the dynamics of striving for excellence.
That's different.
That's very different.
That's a question of bettering and becoming more within
Becoming
self.
more.
That's not
Right,
a question
but
of
in
being
fact,
more than someone else.
That's right. In fact, your world is all based on better than and less than.
Right.
You know, who's better? I'm better than you. You're better than me. This is better.
Well, that's the way it's been. But the hope is to change that. We have it within our mammalian brain to
Correct.
have an innate sense of fairness.
Yeah, and also an innate sense of collectivism.
An innate sense of collectivism. We see it when it shows up in our world even now. When there's a tragedy, all of a sudden there's this wave of unconditional love that will go towards people who have a disaster in their
And
town.
even that is being co-opted. If you look at the dynamics of what is going on in your world and how easy it is to donate to a particular cause, where all you do is you just give your money, and all of a sudden someone who has had a tragedy now has tens of thousands of dollars because you have been so open-hearted in your giving, when in fact you're not really being open-hearted in your giving. You're trying to buy your way to heaven.
Really?
In a way, think about that.
Well, I could see that being a shadow component.
It could be a shadow component, could it not? And in that dynamics of being true help, making a true difference, again, it takes a bigger step, doesn't it? It takes the inclusiveness of everyone, not just those that have suffered a tragedy.
Right, but...
You've suffered a tragedy, so now you're worthy?
Oh, you're bringing up all sorts of questions.
We are, but again, that's the game that you play.
Well...
With each other and yourselves.
Because often our basic... When we close our eyes and we are just with ourselves at night, that basic question of whether or not we have self-worth, whereas from...
You know, some people never question their self-worth.
Well, cats.
No.
Some people never question their self-worth. That's a beautiful thing then.
They know.
They know. All right, for those of us who have or do, that worth is in there somewhere.
You're a divine being manifested
Right.
in a physical body with all of the creative manifestation abilities of the divine. What more do you need?
To remember it.
Well,
To remember it.
we're here to remind you.
So, many of us have been living lives in these boxes of belief that are not who we truly are. With competition, comparison.
Well, we'd argue with that. How can you not be who you truly are?
Well,
How can you not be who you truly are? You may not be happy with the dynamics of how your beliefs are filtering your reality, how your beliefs are creating the dynamics of your reality.
certainly.
You know, but because it is through your beliefs that you create your reality. If you believe you're not enough, then you're going to create the dynamic that continually proves that to you. That's why we say to you, you may not be perfect, but you're enough. If you can begin to know that you're enough. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't things within yourself that you do not wish to change because they don't serve you, but you're enough.
Well, that could just end the conversation right there.
Well, but we have 16 more minutes.
So, one of the things that Josh the channel, and I have used as a lens to look at this, because there are many possibilities here, many possibilities. So to get a sort of human handle on how to look at the day-to-day moving through life and making changes and choices is to look at things through the physical lens, the emotional lens, and the spiritual lens.
Correct. Because you are a triumvirate being. You are physical,
Yes.
you are emotional, and you are spiritual. If you begin to address these three levels in all things,
In terms of what serves,
and what serves you and what doesn't, and make it personal.
make an assessment of, because we often get into repetitive behaviors or patterns or situations that
Right.
no longer serve us,
Right.
and it can be confusing as to how to move forward, what
Right.
choices to make.
When we teach the power of assessment,
Mm-hmm.
we teach it in a very simple way.
Mm-hmm.
Take a sheet of paper, a legal pad for most of you because it's quite a long list that you're going to be making. And you're going to make two lists for each category, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
All right.
Let's say, for example, you have a new job coming up, all right? And that job is, you're trying to decide if this is the right dynamic for you.
Yes.
So you take it dynamic physically, and in the dynamic of the physical, you make an assessment. What serves me and what doesn't serve me? Right? And you put that down and you make a list.
Actually, write it down. Make
That's
it
right. Actually, write it down.
visible.
Right. What part of this job serves me? Well, the salary is great. The boss, not so. Or, we were
Right.
going to say sucks, but we realized that you might not consider that a spiritual term. But in fact, the dynamic ultimately is make a list. What serves you physically? What doesn't serve you physically? What serves you emotionally? Even more important.
More important.
And what serves you, and what doesn't serve you emotionally, and what serves you spiritually. In other words, now you get into the dynamic of basic morality.
Morality.
Working for Philip Morris perhaps does not have that morality
Yes.
that you might wish it to. And we are sorry, we'll probably be sued by Philip Morris now, but...
So that innate morality, you've talked about that. We all have that. We do know it. We have it within.
It's within the basic fabric of humanity, yes. There is that basic understanding, that basic primates especially have that understanding of fairness and sharing.
Do they have a sense of hierarchy?
Yes,
So is there a place for hierarchy
yes.
within an advanced civilization?
Within the dynamic of a duality, we don't think that you can transcend that. But it's an experiment to be researched. By you, not by us.
No, understand, human beings. We're the ones doing this.
Right. Well, you have scientifically dissected so many things, why don't you scientifically dissect the power of emotion in your lives and the ability to utilize emotion as a raw material in creation? Because it is nothing. They talk about the dynamic of love. They talk about the dynamic of you translating, you being a being that translates love into the physical. Well, in a way, that is true, but love is just the resource of energy that you translate into the physical.
When I was a child, we had this, and it's probably still out there as a toy, Play-Doh, which came in different colors,
Right.
and then you would put it through a machine that had different shapes, like a star shape or a heart shape or whatever, and make these shapes. Well, in a way, we are that machine. The Play-Doh is just this Play-Doh
Well,
that can be shaped.
that's a decent analogy, absolutely.
And what makes the shape are our beliefs and judgments.
Well, that is the shape, but it's much more complex
Of
than
course.
that dynamic, certainly so, but that is a very good analogy.
It's a rudimentary.
Well, and we like the analogy, you know, of the old-timey type of projector. What does a projector have to have in order to make an image? It has to have a lens,
Yes.
all right? Well, you have a bunch of lenses, but your lenses are located in your chakras. And the analogy is that your lenses are located in your chakras. And if you can begin to understand the purpose of the chakras as they are given, right, then you can begin to understand how your beliefs and your judgments that are held within those chakras shapes your reality. If you are willing to look at these dynamics objectively, and again, you can make that list one more time, you know, around the dynamics of making an assessment of your beliefs. And this could be a very powerful exercise for so many of you. Well, you know, examine your beliefs, positive and negative, around your relationship with God, Goddess, all that is. Do you believe that you're worthy? Do you believe that you're enough? All of these things. You know, third eye is about your connection to your inner realms, to your realness, to your soul. Does that fill you with fear? Examining that dynamic and delving into that whole situation. There's often so much fear, you know, fear of evil spirits, fear of those dynamics. That's all third eye. It's all third eye. And these two reflections and how you feel about yourself are the ways that you utilize to describe yourself to your reality. The words that you use are a very strong, powerful part of manifestation. How do you describe? I will, I won't, I can't, I'm this, I'm that. Well, every time you make that assertion, every time you have energy behind that dynamic, that's the reality that you work on creating. I'm not enough. I'm better than. I'm less than. Right? And think of that and add that to all of the beliefs that you hold around the divine, positive and negative, and all the beliefs that you hold about the inner realms, positive and negative, and the whole way that you describe yourself to your world, positive and negative. And then get down to the heart chakra where you hold all of the beliefs around love. But also around loss and pain and abandonment and betrayal and all right? And those are just the upper chakras.
Right.
Those are the ones that are more connected with the divine. You take the ones that are connected with Mother Earth. Oh, you have a terrible opinion of Mother Earth. You think that somehow it's evil, that dirty is dirt. That
dirt is dirty.
You know?
Right.
Dirty. Bugs, connection with Mother Earth. Well, you're made up of her.
Right.
And that your base chakra is all about feeling safe and secure. You feel safe and secure in your world. If you do, you're somewhat insane. Sanity in an insane world. All right. But that's base chakra, and that's all about safety and security. And You know, your beliefs around being safe and your beliefs about being secure. And your second chakra is all about creativity and sexuality. And dear ones, we don't need to get into that dynamic.
That's a can of worms.
Well, it's more than a can of worms. It's a whole dynamic where the truth around the dynamic of love and sexuality and all of that has always been skewed, but is even becoming more skewed and more disconnected from the true dynamic of connection that was intended, right? And that is with the dynamic of so much pornography and everything else that exists in your world, and so much sexism in its own way, and it's a new form of sexism that has evolved with your species and has changed with the dynamic of your species. It still exists, it's still there, it still needs to be dealt with. You cannot deny it. It exists in almost everything you see. And then everything comes together in solar plexus chakra, that whole place of thinking and feeling. And we say to you, dear ones, how many of you have learned how to think and feel simultaneously? When you do that, you can begin to have a certain dynamic of mastery over that solar plexus chakra.
Well, any degree of...
Wait, let us just finish.
Sorry.
Just to finish it all up. Take all of these beliefs, take your own personal beliefs about the divine all the way to the physical and everything in between. Make a clear assessment of that dynamic for yourself, positive and negative, around all of the things that you believe, and you will see that you are seeing a reflection of the reality that you are creating.
So there is the beginning of a level of objectivity that is more in the realm of the mammalian brain.
Correct.
Because stepping outside and beginning to take responsibility and having compassion for the parts that we have previously judged good, bad, ugly, beautiful, whatever, all of those.
Now, the dynamics around the power of assessment, because that's what you're talking about here. You're talking about a power of assessment. Once that is learned, for you as an individual, once that is learned, you don't have to relearn it.
And it replaces... Go ahead.
It does. It replaces that old dynamic of not enough.
Well, it replaces judgments that...
Freeze things into place.
Freeze things into place.
Judgments freeze things into place.
And may no longer be accurate.
Well, it doesn't allow for growth. If you're in a dynamic of assessment, if you are always taking new information and building on a dynamic of what you know, does not your experience and your wisdom expand with that dynamic? The more you learn about it, so you can begin with a very simplistic dynamic of you create your reality, but when you get into the actual dynamics of it, yes, you create your reality, but you do it through all these lenses of beliefs and judgments, and you have forgotten that these beliefs and judgments are the things that filter your reality.
It's a lot to take in. But,
right. And as we say, and as we said in the beginning of the other show, you create your reality through your beliefs and your judgments. So you might as well create the most flexible belief system for yourself possible.
So, even though I just gave word to believing that that's a lot to deal with, maybe it's not. Maybe there's help.
Maybe it's a dynamic of it's an inherent ability in humanity that has been forgotten.
And could be remembered.
Well, once remembered is never forgotten again.
That would be lovely.
Well, but again, it's ultimate responsibility, isn't it? It's taking ultimate responsibility for your reality. It's forgiving your mother, forgiving your father for having programmed you because they were programmed. Were they not? They were programmed in the same sort of way?
Certainly.
And you have programmed your children?
Absolutely.
And your children are going to, you know.
So it goes.
So it goes until you create that flexibility of understanding that darn near anything, in a positive basis, based upon the dynamic of reality and morality, anything is possible.
And there can be compassion
And understanding.
and understanding.
Compassion is one thing. Empathy is another. Understanding is another. Empathy begins the dynamic, so to allow you to emotionally relate. Compassion is the dynamic that comes after that, and utilizing that dynamic in experiences, it basically would say, I have compassion for you, but I'm really not going to let you get it on me.
And understanding is more of a, how does that relate?
That's wisdom. It's understanding that people are a product of their environment.
Right, gotcha. So then you are wise.
That's going to lead to having compassion for the person, isn't it?
Yes, it's sort of, they all feed each
Or
other.
the situation. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. All right.
Well, thank you again.
Another half hour
Just
zipped right by.
whizzed by.
We are SOTU, and this is Conversations with SOTU, and we love you all so very, very much. And so till the next time we close, sending you peace, sending you happiness, sending you joy.
Thank you again for hanging in with us for Conversations with SOTU. Check out our website, conversationswithsotu.org, and our sister site, peacegenesisproject.org. And join us if you'd like for our monthly live unfiltered Conversations with SOTU, either through Skype or in person. And So Tuesdays, which are on our website, a quick weekly check-in with SOTU on what's going on. And send us some questions, please. It really helps, gives us something to work off of. And then you'll get to watch the answer. Thank you. Thank you.
You may say I'm a dreamer,